Look around today and man, you will see a world absolutely addicted to constant motion. We're constantly told that movement equals progress, right? We get rewarded for being busy, for multitasking, for instantly reacting to every single ping, email, and crisis that pops up. But what if this constant, frantic urgency isn't ambition at all? What if it's literally just a survival reflex? Today, we're diving into a genuinely powerful concept drawn from deep psychological frameworks, ancient meditation practices, and modern neurobiology. We are going to completely deconstruct this myth that exhaustion is somehow proof of your commitment and explore why true power is actually found in the exact opposite direction.
The mountain does not move for the storm. Just let that sit for a second. In our own lives, the storm is that endless stream of notifications, the demands from everyone around us, those unexpected crises, and frankly, our own internal anxiety screaming at us to act right now. We literally spend half our lives forcing doors that are meant to stay closed, burning up all our strength just to prove we can hold on. But the mountain archetype? It teaches us a completely different way to operate. The mountain remains perfectly still until movement becomes truly necessary. It gathers its energy before directing it, kind of like a tightly drawn bow.
So think about your own chronic busyness for a minute. Every single time you instantly react to a notification or scramble to fix a problem out of sheer panic, you're actively training your brain. This is the neuroplastic reality of our biology. Your brain physically changes based on whatever experiences you repeat. Repeated thoughts carve out stronger pathways. Repeated behaviors become easier, almost automatic pathways. Your attention is literally your training ground. If your nervous system is constantly conditioned around survival, urgency, and motion, you are literally wiring yourself for burnout and impulsivity. The real question is, what are you wiring yourself for today?
Which actually brings us to this incredible Stoic concept, heavily championed by figures like Marcus Aurelius. Look, you cannot control the weather, the circumstances, the opinions of other people, or the storms of life. You just can't. But between the stimulus, the storm, and your reaction, there is a gap, a space. And the crazy thing is, most of our suffering comes from reacting automatically and closing that space entirely. We lash out, we panic, we completely overcommit. But right there, within that tiny space, that is where your absolute freedom to choose your response actually lives.
Let's look at how this actually breaks down our biology, because it's fascinating. Reaction is deeply rooted in survival states, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. When those are activated by chronic stress, your impulsivity skyrockets and your clarity completely plummets. You're just operating purely from fear. Response, on the other hand, is born from a regulated state. When your nervous system is actually regulated, your focus sharpens, your patience deepens, and the quality of your decisions is just vastly superior. This is exactly where wisdom emerges. You aren't just blindly reacting to the noise anymore. You're consciously choosing your path right through it.
Finding the space between stimulus and response. Okay, we've got to step out of the storm for a second here. There is this massive misconception in our culture that calm is just a personality trait, like some people are just lucky and born relaxed. But the science and the sources tell us something completely different. Calm is not a personality trait, it is a highly trained nervous system state. It's a tangible skill that you can develop, practice, and master. See, we so often mistake stillness for passivity. We think, well, if we aren't moving, nothing's happening, so we must be lazy. But stillness is actually controlled power. Think of the archetype of Gate 52, the mountain, which is all about concentrated focus. The ability to pause before you react is quite literally one of the highest forms of strength you can possibly possess. Stillness isn't the absence of action, it is the absolute vital preparation for meaningful action. It's power gathered right in the center, not spilled out frantically everywhere.
So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding how we process all this pressure in life. Drawing on the brilliant insights of Viktor Frankl, we know that everything can be taken from a person except one thing: the freedom to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. Pressure does not determine your identity. How you respond to pressure determines your identity. Pain simply becomes suffering when it lacks meaning. But when you can sit in that stillness and actually locate the meaning inside the pressure, that pain becomes transformation. You retain total freedom to choose your direction.
Sitting with the flame, let's look at the ancient practices that actually build this space.
Enter Tritataka meditation. This is an incredibly old practice of steady gazing, usually done using a single candle flame in a dark room. And what's super fascinating here is that the goal of this meditation isn't actually relaxation. The goal is hardcore concentration. It's built on this really beautiful paradox. The flame itself is constantly flickering, constantly moving, but the practitioner, they remain completely, unbreakably still. You are essentially observing movement through the lens of your own stillness, creating this sustained, unbroken internal attention.
Sitting with this flame literally rebuilds you physically. First up,
awareness and focus. Attention is a muscle, right? Every single time your mind naturally wanders off and you pull it back to that flame, you're strengthening those neuroplastic pathways. Next is emotional regulation. Thoughts are absolutely going to pop up, discomfort is going to arise, but you learn to just observe them and return to center. And finally, nervous system retraining. In our modern world where our attention is totally fragmented, Tritaka actually reverses that damage. It teaches your mind and your body that the absence of stimulation is actually safe, which is what allows you to respond consciously instead of automatically.
Notice how perfectly these two forces unite. The mountain is the ultimate state of endurance, right? It doesn't react to every single passing storm. It stays centered and just gathers its power. But Tritaka, the flame, that is your daily training. It's the actual tool you use to forge that state. The meditator doesn't react to every passing thought, exactly the same way the mountain doesn't react to every sudden change in the weather. The flame develops the raw skill so that you can actually embody the state of the mountain.
The mountain doctrine. This is the ultimate culmination of focus under command.
All these threads finally bind together into this incredibly powerful universal law for dealing with modern chaos, the mountain doctrine. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is focus under command. The mountain perfectly represents the ability to remain entirely centered under immense, crushing pressure, without ever once needing to seek validation from the outside world. It doesn't chase the thunder, and it definitely doesn't beg the sky to form. It simply is. And this is the massive transition from using sheer force to embracing trust, moving away from frantic urgency and stepping into deeply intentional action.
To actually live this doctrine day to day, we have to adopt the principles of restraint. Not every impulse deserves action. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every opportunity deserves pursuit, and not every door deserves to be opened. We so often confuse restraint with being passive, but true restraint requires infinitely more strength than just frantically reacting to everything. Just because there's pressure doesn't automatically mean you have an obligation to respond. You are completely allowed to just hold the pressure without letting your impulses call the shots.
Mountains do not ask permission to exist. They simply remain. I absolutely love this insight because it's entirely about self-validation. So many of us organize our entire lives around being approved of by other people, and all that does is create these invisible chains of suffering. But your inherent value doesn't just evaporate simply because someone else didn't see it. True identity is rooted in undeniable truth, rather than the constantly shifting, unpredictable circumstances of the external world. Bottom line, you do not need anyone's permission to be still. So here's the practical alchemy of all this, the actual formula of the mountain. It's 4 clear steps to shift away from your old default pattern of reacting and into a new destiny of creation. 1. Pause. Literally, just create that space. 2. Observe. Look at whatever is happening without any judgment, exactly like you're just gazing at the flame. 3. Choose. Tap right into that regulated nervous system of yours and decide on the wisest possible path. And 4. Act. Do it with total clarity, not just panic dressed up as drive. This incredibly simple formula is literally the key to mastering your life. Ultimately, the mountain does not resist the storm. It outlasts it. The entire goal of all this training, of finding that tiny space, of gazing at a flickering flame in the dark, it isn't to somehow magically control the chaos of life. Let's be real, the storms are always going to come. The actual goal is to completely master your response to that chaos. Stillness takes the heavy pressure of the storm and turns it into a purpose that you can actually choose.
I want to leave you with this one echoing question, straight from our source material. If just 10 minutes of stillness each morning, 10 minutes of focused, unbroken concentration, returning to that flame, and expanding that vital space between stimulus and response could measurably change the actual biology of your brain and the entire trajectory of your life, would you test it? Or are you going to spend another year out there in the storm, just wondering what could have been? Step out of the chaos. Take your seat in the quiet. Become the mountain.